Hello, and welcome back to the Let Me Add to That podcast. My name is Elizabeth Grasswich, Executive Director of Public Affairs and Communications at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. We are the largest regional education agency in the United States. We serve 80 school districts and nearly 2 million children. We are excited to use this platform to take a deep dive into the conversations surrounding our students and schools in LA County. Teachers are arguably some of the most important people we have in our society. They dedicate their lives to improving the lives of our young people and improving our world. So what we ask of them every day, though, is often a lot. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of time that it takes to do what they do. So today I'm so excited because we have two wonderful teachers with us to give their best advice on how to navigate teaching and retain some level of balance and well-being. So I'd like to welcome our two illustrious 2026 California Teachers of the Year. We have Rene Romero of Covina Valley USD, as well as Dr. Heather Povinelli from Monrovia USD, here to share their best advice. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to start out with just if you can each tell us a little bit about yourselves, what you teach, and why you got into teaching.
Okay, well, my name's Heather. I've been teaching for 25 years, all at the same district, at the same school. I love teaching kindergarten, first and second grade especially. And I also have two children, and I love my partner, and I love cats. But I got into teaching as a child. I always wanted to be a teacher. I loved watching my teacher. I loved watching the calendars change from apple patterns to leaf patterns. I remember I have that visual stuck in my head. But however, my road to teaching was not a straight line. It was more of a jagged roller coaster kind of ride to get here in the beginning, but it got me where I was supposed to be. And I love the fact that I get to make hopefully a positive difference in the lives of students.
Awesome.
I'm Rene Romero. I'm a Spanish. Spanish is my first language, so it's, I teach English now. And I remember starting school, I was placed in the non-English speaking group. And I remember how that kind of made me feel. But like a lot of teachers, I was inspired by a lot of like really good, great, inspirational teachers that, saw something in me and kind of pushed me to, do the best I could. And I've been really inspired by them, and I try to kind of model how I teach through the things that they've taught me, their strategies, their approach, and everything else. I teach high school. IB language and literature, but I've taught a little bit of everything in the English department, like from study skills and intervention classes to honors and AP classes. But I love what I do. I love seeing students every day just kind of grow and discover and read and, kind of just, find their voice and express it.
Well, and I have to add that you two are both LA County Teachers of the Year. LA County is the largest area in the United States. And so that in and of itself is impressive. And then to go on to be California Teachers of the Year. I mean, you clearly love what you do. I mean, it shows in your work. And that's why I'm sure you were selected for these honors. So, when you think about the teaching profession, there are so many pressures, right? I always think about that. You have all these little bodies that are in your room every day, and they all have like different learning styles and different interests, and you have to manage that class and then teach them and encourage them and to do their best, while also preparing for those lessons and grading and anything else you might be involved in the school. So what is your advice to teachers in balancing all of that?
That's a really great question. I'm still figuring that one out. And I think balance looks different for me from when I first started to now. So when I first started, I spent so much time, like you said, thinking about every lesson. Mm-hmm. So I would sit and I would even actually walk around the room with the students not in there, kind of rehearsing the lessons and how it would go and my connections with students. And I feel like I'm really good at that now. So I think I could go into a classroom, any classroom, and probably teach with just a piece of paper and a pencil. But I still need balance. And what my balance looks like now is I've had multiple back surgeries. And so I live with chronic pain. And so I'm really glad that I can do those things with ease. And now the balance comes with listening to my body, knowing when to stop, knowing when to slow down. And it's still very possible I do it. It's just different. So my key to balance has just changed. But I'm glad that I have the skills that I have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and adding to that, like Heather said, there's this idea of having the perfect lesson and the perfect lesson plan. And even, someone that's been in the classroom for 22 years, there's no such thing as like the perfect lesson, right? I teach high school and I have 3 senior English classes. And so ideally it's like, oh, well, it's easy work. I just have to plan one lesson and it's, the same lesson 3 times, but every class is different. There's just a mix of different students, different personalities and stuff. And it's like, okay, well, that didn't work out. How can I adjust? How can I adjust on the fly? And this always happens. So, no matter how much time you spend in preparing the perfect lesson, it's never going to be perfect. And so, you don't have to stress yourself out over having the perfect lesson all the time.
Well, our superintendent, who's like super committed to well-being, she always stresses the importance that like we need to focus on teachers as well, because teachers need to feel good and feel like they're ready to teach the day in order for our students to have a good experience, right? And for us to be able to focus on them. So, if you were to think about like one non-negotiable for you about like what protects that well-being, what would that be?
A non-negotiable is, for me, it's all about the relationship. So protecting the relationship between students and each other, protecting the relationships between students and their teachers, and then we come to with it, whether it's families, our relationships with our families or the principal, it's all about assuming that we're all trying our best. Mm-hmm. And showing up with respect and having a conversation. And if for any time that doesn't happen, then it's just pausing and coming back to it when we can.
Yeah, everything I'm hearing you say, it's like recognizing we're all humans, right?
Yes.
We all come with different things, whether it's you for your back pain, then you have to manage that, or just whatever a student is showing up with or not.
I truly believe that every student is doing their best.
Yeah.
And so that's a lesson that I've learned, because there was a while ago, or years ago, there was a student who I struggled with. And then I went to a professional development, and the person in front said, students don't go home and think, how can I make life hard for that teacher? Mm. And that was my aha moment. It's not about me, it's about them.
Yeah.
And so I think every student and hopefully every teacher is showing up the best that they can. And so it's taking that and helping them grow.
Yeah, and grace goes a long way, right? Sure. There's a big part of like humanizing ourselves for our students, and that does wonders, right? It creates like this sense of like community and vulnerability, but also like a safe space to where it's like, okay, that's my teacher, and my teacher is kind of going through some stuff right now, right? Or having a bad day, pop the tire on the way to work, whatever.
Right.
But then at the same time, we hear all of these things about grit, right? And it's like grit, let's have growth mindset. But a lot of times as teachers, like Heather pointed out, it's not, the students waking up saying like, what can we do to give our teacher a hard time today? Sometimes we overlook the fact that just getting to school is we don't know how many battles they've won just to get there, Right. So I think just giving them grace.
I think and even with young kids, 6, 7, and 8, they have full lives. Mm-hmm. They're coming with full lived lives and experiences. And I think we need to honor that.
Well, and they're dealing with adults before they come to school, and that adult may be having a bad day as well, and that even if it's just negative energy, that I've done it, I'm sure, as a mother, where I was stressed out. I'm sure my kids felt it, and that probably went to school with them, right? And so I think that's like really a lovely thing where we do like it's that empathy piece, right? It's interesting. One of the other things that we talk a lot about at LACOE, I think it's like literally in every podcast I do, is around the need for student engagement and belonging. And so what does that look like for you all, and how do you focus on it as teachers?
Well, I teach juniors and seniors, so they're at that weird stage, right? Like I know everything. I'm an adult. Not quite, but they're there. And my class, because of the class I teach IB language and lit, so it's supposed to be this college level class. And I like having a discussion based class, but they go through school, what's the answer? A, B, C, D, or E. And a lot of times it's, students like shrink at the thought of participation. What if I get it wrong? What if I say something dumb? What if it doesn't make sense? And it takes courage to go and participate. And a few years ago, I had a couple of students that suggested or gave me this idea of like, hey, why don't you try giving us stickers? I'm like, what? Yeah, just give us stickers, just to participate. And, like maybe they can be extra credit. And I thought about it. I'm like, okay, well, maybe. Let me come up with a system. So like 1 sticker per day. And at the end of the semester, we'll, count up all the stickers you have, and 10 stickers equals like 1%. 10 stickers equals 1%. And, if you're on the border of like a B+ and an A-, that'll help you. And it doesn't have to be, like having the right answer, but it could just be like, hey, I don't get this. Like, what does the poet mean when he says this, right? But then that gets the conversation going, and it kind of, allows them to put their guards down. And it's, it's wonderful, because then it's like, it gets me up out of my seat. I'm walking around, I'm giving stickers, and then they hold on to them, and they're like, I want to keep them. And they're putting them on like their Chromebooks, or they're putting them, on their binder and things like that. But it's like, it's been a game changer for me.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Stickers.
Yeah,
and
stickers.
Like for the older kids. And one of the things that I love about having you both is like you've got the older kids and you've got the babies, and they probably both love stickers.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But that idea came from students, and a lot of times, teachers think we know everything, we have all the answers, but hey, we can learn from our students too.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah.
When it comes to engagement for my students, I like to definitely embed movement. Mm-hmm. So they're 6, 7, and 8, so they should be moving every 10 minutes.
Wow.
And so I like to embed movement in the lessons, like whether we're going from the floor to the desks. I also like to do, I call them carpet sea stars. So where we're coming in from lunch, and if I sense that the energy is just uneven, they find a spot on the carpet, and they do like, if snow, but they do carpet sea stars, we call them. And then they come to the carpet, or then they come. I also like to, for engagement, make sure that it's that not one person's answering. How can I get the whole class to answer? So some strategies that I use is, let's just say it's 5 + 5 is the question. I will either say, at the count of 3, show me somehow what the answer is. So they can use their fingers or draw it in the sky. Or I might, whiteboards, everyone shows me the answer. Or I'll say, at the count of 3, whisper it to me like you're a marshmallow. Whisper it to me like you're something. So it's embedding that silly, that fun, because kids want to have fun. I want to have fun.
Yeah.
So those are some things for engagement.
Well, I'm just blown away by every 10 minutes they're supposed to move. That is so crazy different from like how I grew up, right? Where, you were stuck in these and to think that now you're actually recognized, like, the education space is recognizing this need that kids need to move. And that's pretty cool. Yeah. And I want to go do like carpet sea stars in my office. Somehow I'm going to incorporate that. I haven't figured it out. I love it. So I think my next question kind of feeds off even what we were just talking about, getting kids moving and thinking about how to keep them engaged. But part of student engagement is also there's strategies around behavior management, right? And so, what are some of those strategies that you use?
So for me, that is a huge piece. And I think when you walk into any classroom, you can kind of sense the style of the classroom right away. And because I've had a lot of time to reflect this year, which has been a really cool part of this process. Mm-hmm. I've kind of narrowed how my classroom runs into 3 R's. The first one is relationships. And it's all about being intentional. So not just saying, I'm going to build relationships with students. It's really having a practice of doing it and writing it in my plan book, writing it on Post-it notes, how I'm going to intentionally build relationships that day between students and the adults in the room, and then students and each other, which is really important. And then the other routines. Mm-hmm. Learning routines, so how we get out our materials, and then procedure routines, how we walk from place to place, is really important. And when students know it, and they know that you mean what you say. So when I say something, it's in all of it, I try to have integrity. So I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. So even if it's the last day of school in a year, we'll practice something. And just to show that also that it's the human way. We're not, like we've talked about before, we're not perfect beings. I don't want anyone to be a perfect being, but we're always practicing to be our best selves. And then the last one is routines, relationships, responsibilities. And this is probably one of my favorites because when a student knows that their classroom is theirs, it's not they're going into their teacher's classroom. I think that has a lot of power. Mm. And so I try to make the classroom as much about them and them having responsibilities. And so a lot of teachers will have students have jobs for a week. I will have every student have a job, but they have it for about 6 weeks. So they become really the expert of that job. And a 6-year-old in my class will answer the phone and become really great at it, cool. Be a teacher assistant. So those are ways of belonging mm-hmm. for a student, and they really help a classroom run smoothly.
Well, and it's funny because we use the term behavior management, but or classroom management, right? But again, when you translate this into professional, environments, business environment, I mean, you all are managing 30 people, and thinking about all these things, you could probably apply those 3 R's to a professional environment and have a lot of success with that. And that's just something that I don't know that people really recognize about what happens in a classroom. All these things you have to think about.
Yeah, and I mean, Heather, teaches, first and second graders, and I teach 11th and 12th graders, and it seems like opposite ends of the spectrum, right? But we, I think, share a very similar teaching philosophy where there's this element of grace and humanizing ourselves and humanizing each other, to where there's this kind of letting go of the power we have. And that's like an act of love, right? Mm-hmm. Like Bell Hooks says, love is a practice, and it's doing, and it's action, and we have to kind of let go of that power and, quote unquote domination. Mm-hmm. And I think students feed off of that, and that helps so much with, classroom management or behavior management, because I teach high school. I love teaching Langston Hughes' poem Theme for English B, the first week of school. Mm. And it's a really cool poem. Langston Hughes writes about being in a college class, and his professor gives the class an assignment: go home and write a page tonight. Let it come from you, then it will be true. And then Langston Hughes goes home, and he's sitting at his desk, and he wonders if it's that simple, right? So he starts writing his paper about, just basic information, my name, my age, where was I born, that kind of thing. But then as he continues writing his paper, he starts asking all of these kind of profound philosophical questions, right? But then towards the end of the poem, he says something that is really, really powerful. He says something about learning from his teacher, but his teacher also learning from his students, mm-hmm. right? And that kind of sets the tone for, the theme for my classroom, right? Yes, I'm the teacher, but I'm hoping I have things to teach you and that you'll learn from me. But in turn, like, this is a partnership, and you can teach me things too. And I think the students kind of feed off of that. And it just builds this like really good sense of community, to where it kind of helps counter any foreseeable, behavior problems later.
Yeah, you have me just thinking about like my favorite teachers and like what it was about them, and it was that I felt like I was seen, and I was, that I wasn't just being told what to do. That they, it's more than just caring. It's a certain level of like respect as a person,
right?
Not just a kid.
Yeah, they can definitely like feel like the authenticity.
Yeah,
they can tell when you're kind of mailing it in.
Well, and again, this kind of like builds. We're continuing to build on these conversations, and ultimately, these are all tips for other teachers who, are listening and learning. How do you continue to like foster that sense of belonging? How do you build on what you've already shared?
I would say I tell them that they belong. So I say you belong, not just you belong in this classroom. You belong. Just a statement. And then showing them that they belong so that they really know that I mean that. So belong in the books in our libraries, my school libraries. When I'm doodling on a teacher chart, I make sure that I'm not doodling one type of person. I'm doodling students who use wheelchairs. I'm doodling so that that they not only know that they belong, but they also get a sense that belonging is beyond them. Mm-hmm. It's bigger than them. Mm-hmm. It reaches all of us.
And you have them so young that it's just like in their minds from the very beginning.
I hope
so.
That's
beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean, like I mentioned before, I've been inspired by some really great teachers, and one of my high school English teachers would make it his thing to, when we were working independently. He would walk around the classroom and make an effort to talk to as many students as he could about just anything, right? Hey, nice shoes, are the new shoes, or did he watch the game last night? Or if a student, was wearing a sports jersey, just create this kind of small talk, right? But it's like, it might look like small talk, but it really isn't, right? It's letting the students know, like, hey, my teacher sees me. And it gives them something to talk about, and it builds relationships other than just like, oh, what am I supposed to do? What's my grade? Here's my assignment, and I think that goes a long way. So I try to do that, and then obviously the stickers too, right? The stickers, it's like, it's okay not to know the answer and just to ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that from young people before, that they just want their teachers to say, like, we want you here. Yeah. They just want to know that. Yeah. Say hello in the morning, welcome them in, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And get to know them. I think that piece is really, really vital, is knowing the students who love the dinosaurs, knowing the students who have dance after school or are going through grief. It's knowing them as human beings.
And again, that's like a lot. Yeah. That's a lot of students that you're getting to know at that level.
And because I teach high school, it's like, going to a game, not every game, but going to a game, and that makes such a difference.
I bet.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about teachers and students. We haven't yet really talked about parents, who are also part of the equation, right, of student success and teacher success, really. And so what advice would you give to parents about how they can help support their students' teachers?
I'm guessing that answer probably changes from classroom to classroom, teacher to teacher. So I know, like, at my school, some teachers really love when parents or families volunteer, whether they take home projects to cut, whether they're able to come in the classroom or go on a field trip. And for me, I love all those things too. But for me, I love when families come to the table with that we are a team, that we have now just formed a team around your child. And so, being able to be real about children, like seeing them for who they are. If they're goofy, and we talk about it. And just really knowing that I'm there for them, and then hopefully that's reciprocated back. And I find that having that we're here together about your child, and we can make a positive difference together. And I need them, and hopefully they need me.
I don't think I've ever heard a teacher talk about it that way. Quite that, it's a partnership. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a partnership, and sometimes parents, because of work and a whole bunch of other things, they can't make it to back to school night or to some of their sporting events and things like that. Different schools have different ways of communicating, whether it's constant or weekly updates about their grades, or sending something like through. We use an app called Parent Square. To, hey, there's a test coming up. Be sure they get their rest and have a good breakfast. Things like that. Having parents just talk to their kid and just say, hey, how was school? Or maybe not how was school, because a lot of them will be like, oh, it was cool, it was okay, whatever, right? Boring, whatever. Right. I think what I do with my kids is it's almost like a routine now. It's like, okay, tell me a couple of things you enjoyed, and if there's one thing you could change, what would it be? To where now when I go and I pick them up from school, they'll, as soon as they get in the car, they'll be like, okay, today was good in first period, and it's just kind of like routine. So it just kind of just talking to talking to the student.
Yeah. How
was it? Tell me 2 things you enjoyed. 1 thing you could change, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my husband and I started in middle school making our kids do takeaways from the day because they just, decided to be quiet in middle school at the dinner table. And so, just trying to get, encourage them to share. So, I think sometimes we forget that we can do that. And another factor and that can make a big difference is the administrators in the school. And, is there advice you would give to administrators on how they can help teachers balance kind of all the different responsibilities and how they can be supported?
I've been really, really lucky to have had administrators that have, just trusted me to teach what I want to teach, and I haven't had issues with that, but it does seem that a lot of times, like the teachers that really put in that extra effort do get asked to do more, and I don't really know how to fix that other than just say no. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And hearing myself say this, I don't want to come off negative because, it's teaching is hard and it's a demanding job, but it seems that, a lot of times they ask more and more.
And perhaps building that trust, right? Of, being able to say when, their plate's full and they need to say no. And in the same token, perhaps then when that's recognized at other times, more may be able to be accomplished.
But I think it's important for all admin to kind of just, make an effort to go into a classroom and see what's going on.
Absolutely.
Because, when they are on campus, they can talk to students like, hey, I saw what you were doing in, Dr. Povinelli's class. That was really cool, and things like that, to where it's like, it also helps build that community with admin and the students as well.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh, those are the people that work in the office,
Totally.
Yes. And I've had the great fortune of having great administrators. And, I completely agree with what you said because the plate, just to even out the plates. And I really value an instructional leader and an administrator. Coming with that, there's so many trends and so much research that's always coming in, right? And so then we're jumping on a lot of bandwagons, or I don't know how you would want to say it, but we're jumping on a lot of things and trying to add more to the plates of teachers. And what I would really ask is anytime that you're adding something, not necessarily take off, but really look at what that means in the classroom. So say we're adding, even small group instruction, which is it can be a great thing. If you're adding something, look at the schedule of a teacher, fit that new thing in, and then see what the reality is. Because I think protecting instructional time is so, so important.
And just balance.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's totally. What keeps you motivated with, to keep showing up, to keep giving your all every day?
My colleagues give me the fuel, I should say, and then it's 100% the students. I come up, they are my why. They've been my why since day one. and it's not always easy, but when there's that aha moment, or when there's that connection, or when there's a group of students giggling, they are my why. And so when I'm tired, it's at the end of the year, middle of the year, they are my why, because that's my purpose.
Yeah, I mean, teaching's a calling, right? It's an act of love, and we love what we do, and students are a huge reason why. And every day is a new experience, a new lesson, different personalities. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
We were talking a little early before we started about new teachers and, and how, sometimes it's hard when you come in as a new teacher and there's so much to learn and they may not want to ask. So, as we close, what would be your advice to new teachers? Like, what can they do to, learn and grow and just have the best experience possible?
Well, first of all, if you're coming into the profession, thank you. We need you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is an awesome profession. It's also really, really difficult. And so my biggest advice would be, you've gotten here thus far by learning. And so be a lifelong learner. And when you get to those unknowns, whether it's what do I do tomorrow, whether it's how do I teach this concept, how do I teach this group of students, it's unleash the love of learning. Mm-hmm. You're going to need it every year, and you can learn from your colleagues by simply just asking, and please ask. You can learn from a YouTube channel. I love learning from YouTube, especially through the pandemic. That was a fuel for me, and I learned so much. And you can learn by reading a book. So there's so many ways to learn. So love learning, unleash the love of learning, and you've got this.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, what Heather said. No, I mean, it's an act of love, and I mentioned this earlier, but there's no perfect lesson. It's okay to make mistakes, and that's part of the job. You're 20, 25, and 22 years in, we're still learning, and we're going to continue to learn till, like Heather mentioned earlier, our very last day, we're still going to be learning, so it's okay not to know.
And I would shed that idea, and you've mentioned it several times today, of perfectionism. Just shed it and model that shedding from students, because I really think it's not attainable. I don't think it's a true thing, this idea of perfectionism. And so shed it. And I think it's kind of cruel when we hold ourselves to this concept of this false concept of what is perfectionism. Every day is new. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get up and do it again.
We all need to learn that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both for joining us today. I want to go hang out in both your classrooms. It sounds way fun, to be honest with you. And I just want to thank everyone who is a teacher out there for everything you do for our students. We hope today's conversation helped a little bit, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Let Me Add to That.
Please follow the Los Angeles County Office of Education on Instagram and YouTube at Los Angeles COE. That's Los Angeles COE. Or you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn at Los Angeles County Office of Education.